I'm sure you have heard of the Great Depression of 1929. You see, it actually began in September, and it was known as Black Tuesday. It was known as the Great Wall Street Crash of 1929. This is why in September of 2001, we had the Great Depression of Tuesday, the Great Global Recession. You see, a recession is a session that is recycled or repeated and always returns. Thus, it is rebirthed and reborn and resurrected. So September 11th and Wall Street are owned by the Dutch, which is exactly why they held their ritualistic sacrifice on September 11th, the very day that Manhattan or New York was discovered. From the Dutch House of Orange, which brings us to the Gothic House of Bane, and his minion that of course are dressed in orange. And of course, in the Gothic Gotham City, they attack the Gothic city of the Stock Exchange, which is actually filmed at the New York Stock Exchange on the Orange House of Wall Street. And when Bane and his minion attack Wall Street or the Stock Exchange, you'll notice that they're wearing the color of orange. Notice that Bane is wearing the orange helmet.
Rookie, who's the helmet? We need faces for camera. Come on.
It's a stock exchange. There's no money you can steal.
Really? And why are you people here?
You think this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Waits. You're all gonna wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us.
Notice how Bane dwells from Middle-earth or the underworld.
Bryce.
And notice the foundation of the demolition of the earth. And we saw this in Katy Perry's Middle-earth Labyrinth as the earth caves in behind them. And in the film 2012, we see the destruction of the city with the plane and the twin towers, as well as the earth caving in behind them. And of course, the film was released on November 11th of 2009, 9/11. In my past videos, you might have heard me mention John Todd or John Collins, who was a former Satanist who turned to Christianity. And of course, he belonged to the Collins family, which of course was responsible for bringing witchcraft to America. And that's why when you watch movies like Twilight, you'll notice the family comes from the Collins family, the vampires, exactly like Dark Shadows, the vampires of the Collins.
My name is Barnabas Collins. 2 centuries ago, I made Collinwood my home.
My love.
Until a jealous witch cursed me.
And John Todd Collins also mentioned the witchcraft brainwashing of Atlas Shrugged. And of course, Atlas Shrugged 2 has all of the strike imagery of 9/11, the Twin Pillars.
To protect the security of our fellow citizens. For the duration of the national emergency, that the statutes of Directive 10-289 shall remain in effect. All copyrights shall be transferred to the federal government. All wages and other forms of income are hereby frozen.
It's all happening so fast.
Notice how they're all looking up to the tower, exactly like 9/11. And the key word here is Atlas. And notice that the company that distributes it is Atlas Distribution Company. And an atlas means our entire Earth or our entire world, which comes from the primordial Titan god Atlas, who holds up the world. And the etymology of Atlas comes from the root word tel, meaning to uphold. Thus, the very root of tel is the truncated pyramid, the very symbol of the Illuminati. And the truncated pyramid dates back thousands of years to the ancient world. So now you know why Federal Hall in New York City is a truncated pyramid, and even the Masonic House of the Temple is, of course, a truncated pyramid. So when we go to the World Trade Center's courtyard, you will find the statue of Atlas, the one that holds up the financial world. So let's hear what Ayn Rand has to say about the coming financial disaster.
All right, Ayn Rand, what I'd like to know is this. Since you describe it as happening in your novel Atlas Shrugged, do you actually predict dictatorship and economic disaster for the United States?
If the present collectivist trend continues, if the present anti-reason philosophy continues, yes, that is the way the country is going.
In the case of Ayn Rand, she had this extraordinary mystique. Every Saturday in New York, 36 East 36th Street, she met with her, quote, collective. Ha-ha, collective. She's very anti-collectivist. 11 people. They included Alan Greenspan.
I know. Chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Now, what was he? Was he a what?
He was a devotee.
A devotee.
A young economist,
Right.
just absolutely bewitched by this lady and by her philosophy.
You see, all pyramid schemes are created to crumble. You see, in order for somebody to earn $1 million on the stock market, somebody had to lose $1 million. So when they talk about a financial disaster coming in the future, you can bet your ass it's very true, because it was planned that way. And that's no bullshit. And I feel sorry for the people who don't believe me and believe the bullshit religion of the Bible, of the Illuminati, who worship the sacred bull. So I feel sorry for the people who don't believe me about the bull and how a building in itself actually means the bull, and even a tower, which again means the Taurus Tor, or the bull. And like I've said, this is exactly why buildings are found on a boulevard. And if you didn't believe me before, perhaps now you will understand exactly why the World Trade Center has the 2 building replicas that are dressed up as the sacred bulls, or the Bibles. And that's exactly why you'll find many bulls around the buildings of the World Trade Center. And since we're talking about the Tor, or the Taurus bull, the tower and the building, brings me to the Knights Templars again. So perhaps now you'll understand why the Knights Templar had their headquarters in the town of the Taurus bull, or Tortosa. So let's take a look at the cross of the Knights Templar, or the Teutonic Knights. You'll notice that they use the symbol of the double cross, or the 2 riders who ride the horse, the 2 Knights Templars. So once again, we are talking about the 2, which are doubled. You see, what most people don't even realize is that the cross within itself is actually implying the double. A cross means 2 things have crossed paths. Thus, the cross alone is signifying the double cross. But since people did not understand or get the meaning, They went ahead and showed you the double crosses, or the two Knights Templars. And we can see the double crosses in logos in companies like Exxon. So we find the symbol of the cross, which actually means the double cross, throughout organizations and religions of the world. And a double cross also implies trickery or deceiving. Thus we have the saying of "don't double cross me," which means don't try to trick and fool me. And by the way, now you know why the vampire witch Katy Perry was showing you the double Bibles, or the double-crossed bulls. The two bulls, or the double Bibles, which is exactly why Red Bull has the two bulls, or the Bibles. Okay, so earlier I touched on the subject and I'm going to explain it further now. Remember I was telling you how Batman is like a Knights Templar? They both have the cape, okay? They both actually, believe it or not, ride horses. The Knights Templars rode a horse, and Batman rides a motorcycle that has horsepower. You see, Batman is a knight like the Knights Templars. He is the hero like the Knights Templars. And that's exactly why Batman is known as the Caped Crusader. As in the Crusades of the Knights Templars during the Dark and medieval ages. And when we look at the logo on Batman, you'll notice that it's kind of in the shape of a cross, or the Knights Templars cross. Now remember earlier I was telling you that the heroes, or the Knights Templar, were called the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. And remember, the builder of Solomon's temple was Hiram Abiff, and how the Freemasons and the Knights Templar hold Hiram Abiff in high regard. You see, Hiram Abiff is known as the widow's son. The reason why is because he was an orphan. And you don't have to lose both parents to be an orphan. Even the United Nations labels any child that has lost even one parent as an orphan. So it's no surprise that the Illuminati Hollywood film industry has an obsession with orphans. Which brings me to our hero in The Dark Knight Rises, Batman. Remember I told you earlier how his parents were slayed and killed? Which is exactly why our hero, Batman, is none other than an orphan. And it's the same exact story with the evil Bane, who of course is an orphan. Oh, and by the way, in the background of the Batman film, you'll notice the statue of Atlas, which brings me back to Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged.
You have an accent which is
Russian.
Russian. You were born in Russia?
Yes.
Came here?
Oh, about 30 years ago.
And whence did this philosophy of yours come?
Out of my own mind, with the sole acknowledgement of a debt to Aristotle, who is the only philosopher that ever influenced me. I devised the rest of my philosophy myself.
Your parents, did they die in Russia, or did they come here to the United States?
No, I came here alone, and I don't know. I have no way of finding out whether they died or not.
So Ayn Rand was also an orphan. And if you do a little research, you'll also find that Aristotle was most likely an orphan himself. And believe it or not, Plato is also thought to be an orphan. And yes, Socrates was also an orphan.